If you're like me, you've spent years watching certain couples on television, in the magazines, and you feel like you know them. You've watched their love story unfold, seen them laugh together, raise a family. You think they have it all figured out. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos are one of those couples. For nearly 3 decades, they've been our gold standard for Hollywood love. The constant flirting, the shared jokes, the obvious, unwavering adoration. But what if I told you that behind those dazzling smiles, this picture-perfect pair was facing a heartbreak so profound, so utterly unexpected, that it threatened to shake the very foundation of everything they'd built? This isn't a story of scandal or divorce. This is a story of a different kind of loss, one that forced them to stare into an abyss they never saw coming. And what they found in that darkness will surprise you and perhaps change the way you look at your own life, your own relationships, and your own resilience. Stay with us. This is the story you never saw coming. From the moment they met on the set of All My Children, their connection was the stuff of legends. A whirlwind romance, a secret elopement. They built a life that seemed charmed. A thriving career for Kelly. A respected acting career for Mark. 3 beautiful children. They were partners in the truest sense of the word, in life and in business. For 27 years, they were a unit, an unbreakable team. But even the strongest teams can be blindsided. Because the storm that hit them didn't come from outside. It didn't arrive as a headline or a rumor. It came from within the 4 walls of their own home, in the quiet space between I love yous. And it was a pain that neither their fame, nor their fortune, nor their decades of love could shield them from. What could possibly shake a love that has stood the test of time so publicly? The answer is closer to home than you might think. Imagine, for a moment, the soundtrack of your life suddenly going silent. Not the big, dramatic music, but the soft, comforting hum in the background you never even knew was there. The familiar creak of the floorboards from a room down the hall. The easy daily banter over a morning coffee. For Kelly and Mark, that silence arrived in a way every single one of us in this stage of life can understand, even fear. The empty nest. Their youngest child, Joaquin, had graduated high school and was leaving for college. Now, we've all heard about the empty nest. We joke about it. We prepare for it. We think it's about missing our children. And of course, it is. But for a couple like Kelly and Mark, whose identity was so deeply woven into the fabric of mom and dad, this wasn't just a change of address for their son. This was a fundamental rewriting of their daily existence. The house in New York, once filled with the chaos of 3 teenagers, their friends, the barking dog, the slamming doors, fell quiet. Profoundly, unnervingly quiet. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. The very thing that had always held them together, their intense, focused partnership, suddenly became the arena for a new, unfamiliar struggle. You see, for years, their love had been a triangle. Not a love triangle in the scandalous sense, but a structure with 3 points: Kelly, Mark, and the kids. The kids were their shared project, their North Star, their common ground. With the kids gone, that 3rd point vanished. And suddenly they were just 2 points on a map staring at each other across a suddenly vast and silent continent, wondering if they still knew how to navigate without their familiar coordinates. This is where the heartbreak began. Not with a fight, not with anger, but with a deep, resonant grief. Kelly, who has always been so vocal about her family, confessed to feeling a loss so acute it was physical. Mark, the rock, the steady hand, found himself adrift. They were grieving the loss of a chapter, yes, but they were also grieving the loss of their primary roles. The supermom, the proud papa. Those job descriptions had expired, and they were left with the most terrifying question of all. Who were they now? Just the 2 of them. And this is where the story takes its first surprising turn. Because instead of bringing them closer in their shared sadness, this grief began to pull them apart. They weren't fighting with each other, they were fighting their sadness alongside each other, in parallel, but alone. The very silence of the house began to build a wall between them. And in a twist that no fan, and perhaps not even they themselves saw coming, Mark did something drastic. He left. Now, before you gasp, it wasn't what you think. He didn't leave her. He proposed they leave it all. While many couples in their situation might have tried to fill the silence with more work or busied themselves with distractions, Mark saw a different path. He knew that the familiar walls of their home were now a museum of memories, and every empty room was a reminder of what was gone. So he made a radical suggestion. He looked at Kelly in the midst of her heartbreak and he said, "Let's go." He orchestrated a spontaneous, extended trip to Europe. Not a glamorous, scripted vacation, but an intentional escape, a pilgrimage. He convinced Kelly that the way to find each other again wasn't by staring at the same four walls, but by getting lost in new ones. They wandered through the cobblestone streets of small Italian villages, where no one knew them as Ripa and Consuelos. They were just Kelly and Mark. Two people sharing a coffee, a walk, a silence that was no longer empty, but filled with the promise of discovery. But this journey wasn't just about rekindling romance. It was about a much more profound and difficult task. A task that would require them to confront a truth they had buried for years under playdates and parent-teacher conferences. They had to learn how to talk again, not as co-parents, not as business partners, but as the two young, crazy-in-love kids who had eloped in Vegas all those years ago. And what they started to talk about in those tiny cafes and under the Mediterranean sun was a dream they had both let go of. A dream so big and so terrifying, it would either be the thing that finally broke them or the thing that would save them completely. What was this audacious dream? And did they have the courage at this stage of their lives to reach for it? We'll return to that in just a moment, because their story is a powerful reminder that our greatest chapters aren't always behind us. Sometimes they're waiting to be written just on the other side of our deepest heartbreak. And so there they were, Kelly and Mark, standing side by side in a quiet European square, the sun setting behind them. No cameras, no scripts, no audience. Just two souls rediscovering what it means to truly see each other again. Somewhere between the laughter and the tears, between the winding roads and the whispered promises, they found it, that spark they thought they'd lost. It wasn't about fame or perfection or the life they'd built for everyone else to see. It was about them, the real them. And as they sat together beneath the fading light, Kelly turned to Mark and said softly, "Maybe this is what we were meant to find all along. Not the life we built, but the love that built it." That's when everything changed, because sometimes the most heartbreaking endings are really just the beginnings of something beautiful. Pause. Music swells slightly. But their story, the dream they rediscovered on that journey, is one you haven't heard yet. It's bold, it's risky, and it might just be the most beautiful chapter of their love story so far. Stay with us, because what Kelly and Mark did next will surprise you, and it might just remind you that love, no matter how many years have passed, can always begin again.